The New York Mets give multiple updates, all of which pertaining to the injured list. You see on your screen Francisco Lindor, he got hurt, as well as Mark Vientos. On your screen in that intro video was both of them as they got injured. That was their reactions. And yes, Francisco Lindor smiled his way through injury. He is amazing, super positive, and just such a happy guy, and most certainly should be captain of this New York Mets team. Go ahead and check out my last video if you haven't already that I posted on Thursday about why Lindor should be captain of this team if you're curious. But today's video is going to focus on that injury as well as the ramifications of it. In addition to Mark Vientos' injury, as you saw in that intro video, he fell coming out of the box and got injured. We also have a third player to discuss in terms of an injury update, so plenty to go over only on Mets Digest. I'm your host today, Mike Duda, and as always, I like to start off with some statistics. And today's stat is that 73.6% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed. So please do me a favor, do us a favor here on Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into this. And as always, we're going to hear from the experts first. So today's expert is Mike Puma of the New York Post, and he's going to go over this Mark Vientos injury. He said, quote, "The Mets received relatively good news about the third baseman on Wednesday, according to manager Carlos Mendoza, with an MRI exam revealing the hamstring injury Vientos sustained 2 days earlier was a low-grade strain." Mendoza added that Vientos will be treated for 10 to 14 days until he is symptom-free before he begins building up for a return. So go ahead and check out my video on Tuesday about Ronnie Mauricio being called up if you want to hear a little bit more about this injury. But the simple details that you need to know is that Vientos got hurt while running out of the box in Game 1 of the Dodgers series back on Monday, and when doing so, he obviously hit the injured list. Currently on the 10-day IL, that's why Mauricio is in the pros. He is Vientos' current replacement, but we hear some positive news that it's only a low-grade strain because you never really know with a hamstring injury how bad it can get and how long a player is going to be on the IL for a hamstring injury. So it's good that it's only a low-grade strain, and like we heard from Mendoza, 10 to 14 days until he's going to start rehabbing. So hopefully Vientos will be back on the big league roster by the end of June, maybe the start of July, prior to the All-Star break. Now, another guy that I projected to be back by the All-Star break is Sean Manaea, and we have an update on him as well. Also, according to Puma, he said, quote, "Sean Manaea will begin a minor league rehab assignment on Friday," that was yesterday, when he is scheduled to throw 35 pitches for Single-A Brooklyn. The left-hander has been rehabbing an oblique strain since spring training. So it's good news as well on the Manaea front. Definitely a guy that the Mets want to get back. Someone at the beginning of that rotation that was just so dominant for the Mets back in 2024. So hopefully he can come back by the All-Star break, maybe just after the All-Star break, and can be a big part of this team and a big part of this rotation heading down the stretch. Now, the main injury to go over today is Francisco Lindor. We'll go back to this picture that we saw of him smiling while he was hurt. Now, the injury itself is that Francisco Lindor got hit by a pitch. He got hit by an 89-mile-an-hour slider from Tony Gonsolin in the opening at-bat of Wednesday's game back on June 4th against the Dodgers. It hit his right foot. He ended up playing that game, but after the game, when he went for MRI testing and further results like x-rays, it was revealed that he broke his pinky toe. So Lindor, being Lindor, this positive guy, this guy that just wants to play baseball, he actually goes ahead and pleads with the skip, Carlos Mendoza. He wants to play, and this is what Mendy had to say in response. He said, quote, "Okay, I'm going to give you until tomorrow morning, but the answer is going to be the same." That original answer was, unfortunately for Lindor, no, and it remains the same. So that is why Lindor did not play in the last game of the Dodgers series back on Thursday. However, he did play last night, and we'll go over that in just a little bit. But another expert gave an update, and that also looks good, that being Anthony Tacomo of MLB.com. He said, quote, "The reality, as Mendoza said later, is that Lindor received relatively good news about his toe on Thursday morning. The bone is broken, but not on the joint, which makes it purely a pain tolerance issue. Although Lindor was indeed out of the lineup for the Mets series finale against the Dodgers, he avoided the injured list and expects to return within a few days." So in addition to Tacomo being positive, Francisco Lindor himself had some high hopes. He said, quote, "It's just a matter of tolerating the pain. So hopefully I'm strong enough to play sooner rather than later. It hurts. With shoes, it hurts a little bit more than barefoot. I woke up, I was like, okay, I don't feel bad. As soon as I put on my shoes, it was not good. So unfortunately, Lindor is still in pain, and he goes on a little bit further to explain this. He said, quote, I think it's going to be a nagging thing. It's a bone. It's a broken bone. I think it takes 6 weeks for a bone to be fully healed. 3 years ago, I did my finger here, and it still hurts at times. It's part of relying on your body. As professional athletes, that's stuff we go through. This is what God wanted this week, and we'll deal with that. It could have been worse. So, of course, Lindor is being Lindor. He's being positive, but the skip is also positive on him in addition to the positive reports that we heard from Tacoma. Mendoza said, quote, the thing with Francisco is he knows his body better than everybody. The manager said, quote, they've got a good feeling about each other. Not only Francisco knowing himself, but the trainers knowing the player, and the player trusting the medical staff. I think there's a lot of confidence, a lot of trust on both ends, and we'll take it day by day. So good news on the Lindor front as well as the Vientos and the Manaea front. And like I said earlier, Lindor actually played against the Rockies in the opening game on Friday night. He came in off the bench, and Lindor, being the MVP and amazing Francisco Lindor he is, comes off the bench and gets a 2 RBI double to give the New York Mets the lead in the top of the ninth when it was tied 2-2. He knocked in 2 runs, made it 4-2, and the Mets held on for another victory. Their 40th of the season. The Metsies are the first team in the National League to reach the 40-win mark and are the second best team in baseball as we speak. So Manaea is making good progress. That's on the pitching side of things. But in terms of the offense, Vientos and Lindor are both obviously on the left side of the infield. And then we'll see what happens with Ronnie Mauricio. My assumption is he's going to stay up in the pros until Vientos comes back. And then when Vientos is healthy, it all depends on how Mauricio is played, and the Mets will take it from there. But for now, 3 positive injury reports that we went over. Sean Manaea is making his rehab assignment. He began it yesterday in Brooklyn, which is a good sign. Mark Vientos avoided a big hamstring injury. He'll only be out a couple of weeks, and Francisco Lindor is still listed as day-to-day and is obviously on the active roster. Now, a quick update from yesterday's game back on Saturday, Game 2 against the Colorado Rockies in that series. Not only did the Mets win, but Francisco Lindor started. He tallied 3 hits and had 2 stolen bases despite the broken toe on his foot. So he looks relatively healthy. Keep in mind, he did exit the game early because the Mets were up 8-1 in the 8th inning. So the Mets didn't want to take the chance of him getting re-injured. And I think that's something that we need to note and why this injury is important, because going forward, you might not see Lindor play every single inning of every single game like you normally do, because he is still nagging that injury. But overall, very, very, very good news on that Lindor front. He's still healthy. He is still red hot and is still this big guy in the lineup. And the whole reason why this Met offense is starting to click as of late. Vientos is also in a positive state, as is Sean Manaea. So good news on the injury front on all 3 of these guys. But unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you in this video. Thank you so much as always for watching, and let's go Mets.